Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Nodes and welcome to another crash course in which today we will be discussing about Prisma ORM. Okay, so it will be a crash course, but I tried to split this crash course in two or maybe three different parts so that you guys don't overwhelm with the length of the video. Okay. What's new about Prisma ORM and why do we need Prisma ORM and what are the benefits which come with Prisma ORM? So that's the overall agenda of this video. Okay. So let's start the proceedings. So I'm having a markdown, and obviously the link to markdown and all the code which we will write over here will be in the GitHub repo, and the link to the repo will be in the description. Okay, so that's the overall scenario for today. So let's say for somehow I'm going into my reading mode. So Prisma ORM. Obviously it is an ORM, but it obviously differs from our traditional ORMs. And obviously, when we talk about traditional ORMs, so there are some problems which come commonly associated with these ORMs. Okay, so let's discuss those scenarios first. That what are the problems which come with traditional ORMs? And right, if you're following my channel, so you know that I've already uploaded the crash course of our type ORM, and in which we discussed the concept of entities and how entities maps to our database table. So I will just give a quick overview of what are the problems with that scenario. Okay, so let's say this is our entity class, and whenever we provide with these decorators, type ORM will go and read these decorators and will convert this entity into a database table. So the ID goes as a primary key over here, the first name goes as a text over here, and same for the last name and email. So right over here you can see that. Okay, now one problem with this scenario is obviously throughout your application you will be having bunch of entities. Okay, so let's say one class for user, one class for maybe articles, one class for maybe post, and then we will be connecting all these entity files with each other with relationships that can be one to many or one to one or many to many depending on your business use case. So here we are having a problem of managing all those classes, importing all those classes, and connecting each and everything with each other, and that's the obviously that's the way of object oriented way of dealing things. And obviously when you look around the ecosystem of Node.js, Express, or TypeScript, so you can see that there is no much object oriented involved in our ecosystem. So it's majority of the times it's just our functional programming interface. Okay, so that's why this Prisma came into our picture. Okay, so what's different in Prisma is that apart from our object-oriented approach, it uses a declarative approach. And by mean of declarative approach is that you are having just a single Prisma schema, and that schema will be having everything. That will be having your database connection parameters, your every models, or your every much schema, which will be then converted by Prisma to your SQL, and then SQL will go and create your schema into database. Okay, so it's just a single source of truth. So you will be having just a single Prisma schema file, and that Prisma schema file will be having your schema, your structure, which you will define using your declarative approach, and that declarative approach will be accepted by Prisma, and then Prisma will go and convert all those scenarios into SQL and will feed to database. Okay, so that's the overall concept. So let's look how this Prisma schema or this Prisma file looks around. Okay, so you can see that it's broken into three different sections. Number one is our data source, second one is generator, and the last one is obviously your model. And somehow you know that we will be having multiple models in our application. So right now we are having only one. Okay, so in database obviously you will tell Prisma that what type of database you are working with. In our case it will be PostgreSQL, and then obviously on the second point you will be having your connection string, which will go and connect with your database. Okay, and that connection string will be having all the parameters which is required for connecting to your database. And obviously the second one is obviously generator, and for now let's just skip this generator part, but later on in the crash course I will discuss that what this generator will do is obviously. Okay, and the last part is obviously the models, and this is the declarative approach which I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the declarative approach which Prisma has designed, which at the end will be converted to your SQL and will interact with your database. So again, this model will be having a user with ID, created date, email, name, role, and posts. And obviously ID will be marked as a primary key with these syntax right over here. Again, these are not decorators, but this is specific to Prisma only. Okay, so this is a language, a declarative language, you guys can say, that has been developed with Prisma. Okay, so once you define this model will be converted to SQL by Prisma migrate command, and then you can start working, interacting with these models or your database with the help of Prisma client. Okay, so let's look at the working diagram over here. So let me just zoom in for now. So that's the full zoom which I can go. So let's say this is our Express application, and this white rectangle right over here is the Prisma ecosystem. Okay, and on the left side you can see this is our database. Okay, so let's look at the Prisma ecosystem. Now, why I call it an ecosystem is because there are a bunch of components involved in Prisma. Okay, so the very first component is obviously Prisma Studio, and I have marked it first is because it doesn't have to be a compulsion, or it doesn't have to be compulsory to use Prisma Studio, because the only task Prisma Studio does is to show the data which is inside your database. So you can interact with your database, you can create records, you can delete records, and it gives you a GUI in your browser which runs on port 555, and you can access that GUI and can interact with your database directly. Okay, so that's the overall task of Prisma Studio. But now let's come into the picture. Let's get into the main picture, which is this schema type right over here. Okay. So let's say this white rectangle is your schema, which you have declared using a declarative approach, which you have created using declarative approach. And so once you define your schema, that schema will be a part of Prisma migrate component. Okay, so we are having three components: Prisma Studio, Prisma migrate, and Prisma client. These are the three components which are the part of Prisma ecosystem. So let's say whenever you run Prisma migrate command, which is a part of Prisma migrate component, so whenever you invoke this Prisma migrate component, it will take your declarative schema, which is this prisma.file. It will take in that file as an input, and then it will convert those these models or all these stuff which is involved in this schema file. It will convert all those into SQLs, which are obviously known as migrations, and it will also create the related SQL in a separate migration file, and it will also run those migrations in your database. Okay, so in simple words, you can say that the Prisma migrate component will be converting all your this models into your database schema. Okay, so that's the overall concept of Prisma migrate. But here comes the point. So there is one more extra task which Prisma migrate does, and that Prisma migrate does is that this Prisma migrate interacts with your Prisma client, and it converts all these models to TypeScript types as well. So let's say if you are having a model user of with these attributes, it will go and also convert this model into a TypeScript type of type user, which will be having ID, created at, email as a string, and name, and all those stuff. So it will convert your this model into a TypeScript type, and it will hand over that type definitions to Prisma client as well, and the rest of extra information, maybe you can say. So what Prisma migrate does is it will also create your migrations, execute those migrations, as well as it will provide some extra information to Prisma client, which will be just a conversion of these models into TypeScript types. And then with the help of that Prisma client, you can interact with Prisma client from your backend application. You can install it as a dependency from npm package to your main project, and then with the help of that Prisma client, you guys can use that type definitions. You can perform different queries, and depending on your use case, you can do each and everything which you normally do with a relational database. Okay, so that's the overall concept of working off our Prisma. Okay, so it's a declarative approach, and that declarative approach is fed to Prisma migrate, which will convert your migrations, will feed your migrations into database, as well as it will also provide your types to Prisma client, and then Prisma client, by the help of that Prisma client, your backend application and interact and can perform different queries. Okay, so that's the overall concept here. So obviously, the very first thing which comes into your mind is obviously if you want to use Prisma with JavaScript or TypeScript. Again, you guys can use Prisma with JavaScript, but obviously the recommended approach is with TypeScript, because Prisma migrate also give you the type definitions of all these models which you have created in this declaration file. Okay, so that's the overall concept. So let's jump to the topics which we will cover today. So obviously, the very first thing we will do is we'll install our required dependencies in our project, and then after that we'll install our Prisma client, and after that we will see that how we can interact our records. We will get all the records and all those queries which are a must when we are working with our relation databases. So we will be executing all those queries. So let's jump to the practical demonstration. Okay, yeah, so if I refresh this thing, So you can see right now I am having a Postgres as a local database which is running locally in my laptop. So obviously if you are working with database, in our case we will be using Postgres. So if you want to use Postgres, you can either set up locally in your computer or you can use it on a cloud, whatever suits you, you can do that. Okay, so I'm having for now, you can see I'm having just a database which is connected with my data grip. I'm using data grip for now, and for now I'm having no tables in my database. So let's minimize this thing for now and let's open our VS Code. And for now I will just create an empty folder and I will open that folder in my project. So let's open our folder for now, and let's say I'm going to my desktop, and let's create a new folder and let's call it Prisma practice. Okay, Practice. Practice. Sorry for my spellings if I'm wrong with that, and I'm usually bad at spellings. Okay, so this is the folder right now, and it's completely empty for now. So let's start the proceedings. So let's say the very first thing obviously we have to do is to initiate our package.json file. So let's clear the screen and let's say npm init and -y because we want the default options, and this will create our package.json file. Okay, so let's start with our dependencies. Okay, so obviously you guys can use Prisma with the TypeScript, but since we know that we usually use Prisma with our backend applications which will serve our REST endpoint, so for that we need an HTTP server or HTTP library, you can say. So I will be using Express for that. Okay, so let's just install our Express, and that's it for now. I think that's for now. It will be our main dependency. Okay, so that's our Express. And for development dependency, obviously we will install let's say since we are working with our TypeScript thing, so we will be having TypeScript, so that will be our development dependency. We need TS node, and we will need our node mon, so node and mon. Okay, so and obviously since we are working with Express, so we will be needing our type definitions of Express as well as our types definition of node. Okay, so that's the overall development dependencies for us which is required. And yeah, since obviously we are working with Prisma, so I think we need Prisma as well. Okay, so we can do that. So let's say it's Prisma. Okay, so this Prisma is obviously the CLI, the command line interface, which will be installed as a development dependency for now. Okay, so since we don't we need Prisma only for development purposes, but the main interaction with our database will be done through Prisma client, so we will install that Prisma client as a main dependency for now. For now we are just having our these development dependencies. So let's just enter this thing and let's wait for this to finish. Yeah, so here you can see we have installed the packages. If I look to my package.json file, so you can see all the development dependencies and all the main dependencies. Since we are working with TypeScript, so obviously we know that we need our tsconfig.json file, which will contain all the parameters for our TypeScript compiler. So let's create this by TypeScript compiler and dash dash init. Okay, so it will go and create our tsconfig.json file, and obviously in here I will just change couple of options depending on my project scenario. So out directory, and that out directory, this is the place where all our compiled JavaScript will go, and in our case I will keep it in test. Okay, and for our root directory I will mark it as source, since I will keep all my code in my source directory. And since it's a source directory, so let's go and create that one. So it's a source directory right over here. Okay, so let's save this thing for now, and since we have created our source directory, so let's create our very first file, which will be our app.ts. So this will be our entry pointer of application. So let's import Express, and this will be from Express, and let's create a object of that Express application, and let's say app.use, and I will also use express.json, which will pass our incoming JSON into our request.body parameter. And then let's just create an endpoint, which will be a simple endpoint, and it will return a request which will be of type request, which will obviously come from type definitions of Express. So let's say, yeah, right over here, and let's say it's a response, and it will come from obviously from the type definitions of Express as well. And let's return just response dot send. Let's send hello world. Okay, so that's the overall scenario, and after that we will be starting our let's say we are starting at port 3000, and that's the callback function which will be fired when our server will start. So let's say we are just going to uh, log maybe something like server has started. So let's say server has started, and that's the overall scenario for now. Okay, let's just remove this one, which is the import which we don't need. So for running this application, obviously you need some scripts, and let's remove this thing for now. And let's say I want a development script which will run our project in development mode, and for that we will be having node-mon, and inside our source we can point to our app.ts file, and this will obviously run in our development mode. So if we try this thing npm run dev, it will go and run with the help of this node-mon, and node-mon obviously it watches all our files which we will create, and whenever we change anything inside our file, it will go and automatically restart our server. Okay, so that's the reason we are using node-mon here. So if I somehow since we know that server is started, we are getting that log right over here. So let's test this endpoint. So if I open my Thunder client, and let's go to our new request, and if I go to localhost 3000, if I send this thing, you can see we are getting hello world as a string right over here. Okay, so that's everything. And if somehow I change this to hello world 2 and save this thing, you can see node-mon has automatically detected and has restarted my server. And if I something hit this thing, and now I will get hello world 2. So that's the benefit which comes with node-mon. So let's close this thing for now, this one as well. Let's get back to our project, and now let's start working with Prisma. Okay, so since you know that we have installed Prisma as our development dependency, you can see here. So we have to generate a project, or you can say we have to generate some initial files with that Prisma thing. Okay, so for that what we can do is so let me just come over here into our integrate terminal, and let me just open one more terminal here. Okay, so let's say for now I want to create our very first project with not a project, but the initial files which are required for working with Prisma. So I can do it like npx, I'll go Prisma, and then I will obviously say init. Okay, so what this will do is it will go and initiate Prisma in my project. So let's enter this thing. So once it's done, yeah, you can see it has created ton of things over here. It is saying that you need to provide the provider of data source and all those stuff. You can read it, okay. But for now, let's hide it in our console. Let's go to our entry point and let's see our folder structure. So here you can see that we are getting one Prisma folder right over here. And inside that Prisma, we are having our schema.prisma file. And this is the file. This is the file in which we will declare our models in a declarative approach. Okay, so that's the overall concept right over here. And since we are working with PostgreSQL, so obviously I have marked Postgres over here, and the second one is URL, which is coming obviously from our database URL in our environment variable file. Okay, so if you go to our .env file, this is obviously the file which is also created with by Prisma. Okay, so here you can see I'm having the URL of the database. So since my parameters are different, so let's say I will go with Postgres. I'm not having a password here, and it's running on localhost 5432, and the database which we will be using will be test. Okay, and this is the same database which I have opened in my data grid as well. Okay, so data grid, this is the same test database right over here. Okay, and again this URL will be different according to you if you are running a different database. Okay, these parameters can be different. So let's remove this comment, so these are too lengthy. So for now we are just having our URL parameter, and that is being fed to our data source in Prisma declarative file. Okay, so in our schema, so the very first thing we have to do is to create something, some table or some models in our declarative file, which will be then fed to our Prisma migrate command, and that migration will convert all these to SQL and will feed that SQL to our database. So this is what I'm talking about. So if you go to my Obsidian, so this is what I'm talking about. You have your declaration file. You have to create these models in your declaration file, and once you run the Prisma migrate command, it will take your these models, will convert them to SQL, and then feed it to your database, and it will also notify to your Prisma client as well that yeah, these things do exist in your database. Okay, so let's start this thing. Okay, so if I go to our code, so let's say the very first thing we have to do is to understand that how we can create models in this schema.prisma file. Okay, so let's say for creating a model, we can type model, and let's say I want to create a model of user. Okay, so that's the way. And yeah, one more thing before proceeding to our this Prisma schema thing. If you are not getting this syntax highlighting in your VS Code, so you have to install this extension. So if I come over here and I type Prisma, so yeah, this is the extension which I'm using for now. This is Prisma, and I think this is the official extension which comes for understanding Prisma schema files. Okay, and right now I've installed this thing. So if you somehow are not getting syntax highlighting in this file, so you have to install this extension. Okay, so yeah, let's start the proceeding. So let's say for now, since we know that every model in our a database has a primary key, so the very first thing we can do is obviously we can define an ID, and after that we have to define that what will be the type of if of an ID. Okay, so it will be an integer, and let's say for marking it as a primary key, I will use @ID option parameter, whatever you can say it. So it is a built-in keyword which comes in our schema.prisma file. Okay, so I will be using another thing which will be @default keyword, and obviously the default keyword here is used to provide the default value to this ID parameter. And I know that since it's a primary key, it will be auto incremented, so I will just write auto increment, which is a function which comes in Prisma schema.prisma file. Okay, so once you create your ID, the next thing you have to do is to provide our, let's say, depending on your use case. So let's say for now I'm having a first name and a last name for now, and that will be also of string type. And let's say I'm also having email, and that will be of a string type. And obviously, since I know that email must be unique, so I can use a keyword here which will tell Prisma that yeah, mark email as a unique field. Okay, and let's say I'm having age as well, which will be of type int. Okay, and make sure that this int is starting with a capital I. Okay, so let's say for now this is the only model or only table we want in our database. So let's say after you create your models, what's the next step you have to do is to tell this one. If I come to my Obsidian, you have to tell this Prisma migrate that yeah, our schema is ready, our model is ready. Go input, take that schema as an input and create a migration for me, and also feed that migration in our database. Okay, so if I save this thing and let's open our data grip, and right now you can see in our data grid there is nothing. Okay, so if I refresh this thing, we are not having any tables or something. So if I somehow come to my code, VS Code, so let's open this thing, and if I come over here and let's say for now I will run a command which will be migrating this schema file to our database. Okay, so let's clear this thing. The command is obviously, let me just make it smaller for now. So the command is obviously we will use npx, and then we will use Prisma command, and then we will use migrate. So this migrate means that we are invoking the migration process or the migration component which is in our Prisma ecosystem. Okay, so Prisma migrate, and then we will we'll say we will name it something like, maybe let me just check the syntax. Okay, yeah, so it's Prisma migrate dev. So we are migrating in a development mode, and then we can name our migration anything which we want. Okay, so since we are creating our user for now, so let's say I'm naming it something like, let's say, user and maybe user model or something like this. Again, it depends on you, whatever you want to name your migration. Okay, so let's save this thing. Let's enter this thing, or not save this thing. So when you will enter this thing, obviously you can see that it has created a migration. It's saying applying migration, and this is the migration which is having your current time step as well as the name which we have given, which is our user model, and it has covered that converted that dash into underscore right over here. And it is also saying that your migration has been created and applied. So it has also created my migration and has applied my migration, and you can find your migrations in this migration folder right over here. And here it is giving you a log that your database is now synced with your schema. So if you come to our data grip and for some reasons you refresh this thing and you open this, now you can see that we are having two tables. Okay, one table is obviously for our Prisma migrations, which will keep track of our migrations, what migrations we are migrating and what migrations we have rolled back. So it will just keep a track of all those migrations. And obviously the second one is obviously our model, which is our ID, first name, last name, email, and age. And if you look our data definition language, so you can see we are having ID as our primary key, first name as a text, it is not null, mean that it is required, last name is also required, email it is also required, and age it is a type of integer and it is also required. And you can see that for now we are making unique as our email, so we are marking our email attribute as unique right over here. Okay, so in simple words, obviously this migration has done is it has converted this model to your this database table right over here. Okay, so that's the overall concept which comes with our migration. And since we know that it has also provided some extra information to our Prisma client as well, so we will look into that. Okay, so let's move to our next step. So once we are done with our migration, the very next thing we have to do is to install Prisma client in our application. Okay, yeah, so this is the command npm install at that Prisma client. Let me just copy this thing, let me close this thing, and let's just open our integrated terminal, and let's clear it for now, and let's paste it over here. So this Prisma client will be our main dependency, because this is the package which will connect our application with our database schema. Okay, so let's install this thing, and once you install your Prisma client, you are done. Okay, so let's clear our screen, and now we can import our Prisma client, and we can easily interact with our this model. Okay, so let's go to our application entry point, and let's import Prisma. So it's import, and let's import it like Prisma client from our @Prisma client. Okay, so once you get your client, you can start interacting with your database. Okay, so let's have a scenario. If I go to my Obsidian, so you can see that if you come over here, you can see that with the help of Prisma client, we can insert one or more records in our database. So let's say if you want to insert a record in our database, so how can we do that? Okay, so let's for now come to this endpoint, which is in Express. So let's say I want to create a record. So for now, what we can do is we can use our Prisma client. So let's say let user, and that is equal to our so let's say first we have to create an instance of this Prisma client. So I will create it right over here. So const, and let's call it Prisma equals to new Prisma client. Okay, so that's the only one object, and please make sure that you are only using this object once in your complete application. Okay, so you only need to have this instance one in your application. Okay, so don't try to make multiple instances of this Prisma client, just use one. Okay, so let's save this thing, and let's use this Prisma. Okay, so let's say for now what I will do, I will just come into my this endpoint, and let's say Prisma dot, and this dot will give you all the IntelliSense, because since we are using Typescript, so everything which comes, you can see that IntelliSense is working fine. And now here you can see that we are having that user model which we have created. Okay, so that's the user model, and if you click on dot user, you can see that we will be having all the methods which is required for interacting with that model. So we are having delete, we are having create many, we are having count, and all those stuff. So let's say I want to create a user. Okay, so since I want to create a user, so let's open this thing. It is a function, and inside this function we will pass our data, and inside this data, if you come over here and you invoke your IntelliSense, you can see this is the point where Prisma is telling you that yeah, this for creating a user you need these parameters, and this is the good thing about Prisma. Okay, it gives you all the complete IntelliSense. Okay, so let's say our first name is obviously make it something like Afaq, and let's say the last name is obviously Javed. Let's make it age to maybe shy 27, and let's say yeah, what is left? Yeah, email is left. So let's say for now email is afaq@gmail.com. Okay, so once you satisfy all the properties, you can see that the error is gone, and that's the beauty of that's the beauty of Prisma right over here. Okay, so once you save this thing, you can see that if you hover over this create, you can see that the very first thing you can see, if I scroll down, yeah, I think it, yeah, you can see that for creating our user, you have to create, and you have to provide data, which we have done, and we have to use await. Okay, since it is an asynchronous operation, and I think majority of the ORMs in the Node.js ecosystem, they are asynchronous. So whenever you are interacting with those ORMs, you have to be asynchronous in nature. So for that, obviously I will mark it as asynchronous, and let's make it await. Okay, and I think it does return the created user as an object back to you. So let's hold that object in our user variable. So that's the overall concept. You have created your user, and we have creating users with our Afaq Javed age 27 and with this email right over here. So let's save this thing, and let's send it in a JSON format back to our client, and let's say we are sending that user object. So let's save this thing. Let's open our integrate terminal, and let's see if everything is working fine. Yeah, so it's everything is working fine for now. And if you come to our Thunder client, and let's open that request again, and now let's fire this thing. So if I send this thing, you can see that obviously we are getting our status 2 net okay, and we have created our very first user, which is having an ID of 1 and all the parameters which we have specified. And if you somehow open your data grip and let's refresh our table, you can see we are having that record in our database as well. And from here you can just assume that how simple it is to work with Prisma. So that's the overall concept here. Okay, so let's say now since we have created our user, so let's if I go back to my Obsidian, you can see that we can insert one or more records in our database. So let's see that how we can insert more than one record in our database. Okay, so for that before inserting more than one record, let me just first show you that if you go to my Obsidian diagram, you can see that I have told you that whenever we execute Prisma migrate command, it migrates our database as well as it provide all the type definitions to our Prisma client as well. And obviously for referring that, you can easily import your type definitions from here. If I type user here, you can see right over here it is saying that yeah, there is a type definition of user which is having ID, first name, last name, email and age. Okay, so this is the type definition which is coming by default from our Prisma client, and this type definitions were converted by this package Prisma migrate. Okay, so you can use this type definition out of the box without creating additional type definitions. So this is one beauty of Prisma. So let's say for now we want to create multiple users. So let's change the scenario. For that you have to use create many here, and this create many will accept your data, but this time it will be an array. Okay, so let's okay, let me just make it a starting bracket here and an ending bracket over here. Okay, so this will be our first object. So let me just format it for now. Okay, so this will be our first object, and let's say we want some more. So let's copy this thing. Okay, so let's paste it over here, and let's say I want one more user, so let's paste it over here. So let's just format this for now. Okay, so we are having three different users, so let's change the parameters. So let's say it's Asad Javed for now, and since we are having unique emails, so I will mark it as Asad. And let's say we are having Ahmed Javed. Okay, and let's say we are marking it as Ahmed. Okay, and let's change the age as well. Okay, so let's say it's 16 for now, it's 21 for now, and let's say it's 12 years old, and maybe it's somewhat like let's change the name to Jamshed. Okay, and let's call it Jamshed as well. Okay, so we are having three different users, Asad, Ahmed and Jamshed, which are having different ages and different parameters. So let's save this thing for now, and let's open our console, and I think I don't have to change anything else here. Okay, so everything is working fine for now. And if somewhat I go to my Thunder client, hit the request, and now you can see we are just getting the count 3 back. It means that there were 3 records which were being inserted, which has been inserted in your database. Okay, so if I come to my database data grip and refresh this scenario, now you can see we're having Asad, Ahmed and Jamshed. These 3 records has been inserted in your database. Okay, so that's the beauty of Prisma right from here. So let me just for now uh, comment this thing, and I will just make it here, and this is just for reference okay, since I will be uploading this code in our GitHub repository, so I've just commented this one so you guys can easily refer from there. So yeah, we are done with that. So if you come over to here, we can see that we have seen the scenario in which we have inserted one or more records on database. Okay, so let's say if you want to get all the records, so yeah, that's obviously easy. Let's say let all users, and let's say we will again be, it will be an asynchronous operation. So await, again we will invoke our Prisma dot user, and that will be dot find many. Okay, so this is the function which will obviously give you all the users which are currently present in your database, and let's mark it to all users. Let's save this thing, open our console, and here you can see that yeah, your server is started. And now if we move on to our Thunder client and hit the request, so you can see we are getting 200 okay with all the users. So it's ID 1, 2 and 3 with name Afaq, Asad, Ahmed. Okay, so we are getting all 3 users which are present in our database. So ID 1, 2, 3 and 4. So yeah, 4 1 is also here. Okay, so these are total 4 records which are being sent by Prisma. So yeah, we can get all the records, as well as we can also get records by selecting only one of the only required attributes. So let's say we have a scenario in which I want to select uh, maybe let's say I want to just only select first name, so I will mark it to true, and I also need the last name which is true. Okay, so let's say I have a scenario in which I have to get all the users with only by first name and last name. Okay, and let's say I also need the email as well. Okay, so let's mark it to true. So if we save this thing and open your let's say, okay, so it's true. Okay, save this thing and let's open our console, and you can see our server has restarted. And now if somehow I go and hit my Thunder client, you can see that we will only get first name, last name, and email. So we are not getting the ID and the age attribute. Okay, so that's the overall concept of how we can get the records by selecting one or more attributes. Okay, now obviously since in our real world applications we might concur different scenarios and complex use cases. So for that obviously we need our records to get on based of ID or some multiple conditions. Okay, so yeah, so we can get records based on multiple conditions and obviously based on ID. So let's say that how we can get our record based on ID. Okay, so let's say I'm coming into my VS Code back. Let's go to our entry point and let me just comment this thing, cut this thing, and I will move to the end of the file. Okay, so you guys can refer from here. So let's say for now I want to get user by ID. So let's say for that I will say let single user, and again it's an asynchronous operation. I will invoke prisma.user and then I can say dot find, and let's say I want to find a user based on ID. So obviously that user will be unique, so I can say find unique, and inside this find unique I will pass the condition on which that record will be fetched. Okay, so since I know that where, I will use a where clause here, and that where will be having the condition. So I will say that where ID is equal to, let's say, 3. Okay, so what this will do is it will find that unique user which will be having the ID of 3 right over here. Okay, so it's a user, so let's send that back. Let's save this thing. Let's open our console, and now you can see obviously our server has refreshed, and if I go to my Thunder client and let's head the request, now you can see that we are only getting back the user with ID 3 and which is having name Ahmed, Javed, and all those attributes. So yeah, that's one way of getting your user back based on ID, and obviously it doesn't have to be one-way condition. You can add multiple conditions in this. So let's say I also want the email to, let's say, let's first look at our records. Okay, so let's say I want our email to be a FAQ, and let's say the ID to be 1. Okay, so let's say I'm marking it as ID 1, and let's say a FAQ @gmail.com. Let's save this thing, and let's okay, once you save this thing, let's go to our Thunder client, and for now if I open my console, yeah, everything is working fine for now. So let's hit the request, and now you can see I'm getting that record, that ID 1 with a FAQ Javed, and obviously the email is same and the ID is as well as same. Okay, so that's one way of finding records. Okay, so now obviously whenever you work with uh, relational databases, you will be having multiple conditions. Okay, and that conditions will be obviously based on or and. Okay, so these are the two keywords which we usually use. Okay, so let's say I want to use a condition of or maybe and conditions. Okay, so for that we can do that with our Prisma, and obviously these or and keywords are, I think, majority times we use them with SQL. So obviously Prisma does provide this. So let me just comment this thing, remove this thing from here, and let's paste it here. Okay, so just for reference. Okay, so let's say we want some scenario. Okay, so let's say I want a user with ID maybe ID less than, maybe ID equal to 1, and or it can be, let's say we want a user which is having uh, okay, yeah, let's create this scenario. So let me just make it let all users, and let's say equal to I can say prisma dot user dot find many for now, and let's come inside this and let's create our conditions. Okay, so inside our where block, what we can do is we can very first define our or condition. So inside our or conditions we can provide many conditions, so it will be an array, and inside this, let's say we want our or condition, the very first condition where ID, let's say our ID is equal to let's say ID can be 1, or let's say uh, our email is, let's change the email. So let's say it's asad@gmail.com, where Asad email is equal to asad@gmail.com. Okay, so once let me just post all users over here. So what this will do is it will place or ID equal to 1 or email equal to this. Okay, so since this is the or condition, it must have to return 2 records. Number 1 will be this one because it will be having an ID of 1, and obviously number 2 because it will be having an email of asad@gmail.com. So let's save this thing and let's open our integrator terminal. So let's see that yeah, server has restarted, and let's go to our Thunder client, hide our console, and let's send it. Okay. Yeah, so now you can see that we are getting empty record, and that's the reason why we are getting an empty record. Okay, yeah, sorry, I forgot to use await here, so let's mark it await, since it has to wait for that asynchronous operation. So let's open our console. Yeah, everything is working fine for now, so let's hit it again. Okay, yeah, so now you can see that everything is working fine. We are having ID 1 or this email, which was asad@gmail.com, and these are the two records which are obviously being received by me based on this condition right over here. Okay, so let me just copy this thing and mark it over here, and I will comment this thing, okay, just for your reference. So yeah, obviously you can use these conditions if you want, where, and as well as you can also use AND condition. If I mark this thing AND, so now scenario will change, because it will look for a record which will be having ID 1, and it will be having an email of this one. Okay, so when you mark it AND, so these two conditions must be satisfied. Okay, so now since if we look on our data grid, you can see that we are not having a record in which our ID is 1 as well as our email is asad@gmail.com. Okay, so that scenario is not matching. So what we will get is, obviously we will get a blank object. So let me just open our console, and now you can see that everything is working fine for now. If I go to my Thunder client and let's hit the request, and now you can see that we are getting an empty array, because none of the users in our database matches with this condition. But if somehow, let's say I mark this to ID2, but now I can see that this ID there is a record which is having an ID2 and this email right over here. So obviously that condition will match. So let's save this thing and let's open our console. Our server is restarted, and let's go to our Thunder client, hit the request, and now you will get that one user which is having an ID of 2 and email of this. Now obviously there is more to Prisma, and there are a ton of ways in which you can go and find records based on multiple conditions. Okay, so for that, what I will do is I will just give you a link in which you can go and further read about your Prisma client scenario. So I will just mark this. Let me just give you the link. Okay, and I will also place the link in the same code. So this is the link which I am referring to. Okay, so you can go and further read about what are the ways in which we can define different things or different conditions based on Prisma client. Since it is a crash course, I won't be dealing with very much with this. Okay, I don't want to go in depth. So let's save the scenario and let's go to our Obsidian. And now since we know that we have done with these three parts, okay, now obviously we have also done with, we have got records based on ID and multiple conditions. Now the obviously thing is to update our records. Okay, now for updating, obviously there must have to be a method in our Prisma in which we can update our records. So let's go and look into our this. Okay, so let's say let's come over here and let's remove this thing for now. So let's say let updated user for now. Okay, so let's say updated user, and I want to await, because since it will be an asynchronous operation. So let's say prisma dot user. Okay, prisma dot user, it's user for now, and then we will use this update. Okay, so this will be a complete object. In this object there will be two parts. Number one will be a condition, and here we will provide the condition, and here we will provide the data. Okay, so this condition is obviously where ID, and that ID will be equal to 1, sorry, it was 4, and in that I want to update my age from 13 to 15. Okay, sorry, it was, I think it was 12. Okay, so it was 12. Now I'm marking it to 15, and the ID is obviously 4. So based on this condition, it will go and find the record with ID 4, and then it will provide the data with this updated value. Since now you can see that age is 12, but whenever you will update this record, it will go to 15. And let's pass this updated user back to our client. So let's save this thing and let's open our integrated terminal, and now you can see that everything is working fine. Server is restarted. Let's go to our Thunder client, hit the request, and now you can see that we are being sent by the object which is updated from age 12 to age 15, and that's the overall picture. You can see that it is also reflected in our data grid. If you refresh the table, now you can see that age goes to 15. So that's how you update one record. And now let's say I want to update many records. Okay, so for that, let's say I want update many, and let's say on the basis of update many, I want where let's say where email, and let's say where email, am I having something like includes here? Maybe where email contains, yeah, where email contains, let's say where email contains something like maybe @gmail.com. Yeah. So what I've done is I have provided a condition in which I'm saying that, yeah, whenever go and find all those records which are containing email, in which the email contains this keyword. Okay, so if you go to my data grid, you can see that after every, in each email I'm having @gmail.com, and it's Gmail, so MAIL. Okay, so it will go and update all those records, and let's say I want all of their ages to be, let's say, 30 for now. If I save this thing, I open my integrated terminal, everything is working fine. Let's go and hit the request. Now you can see count 4. Count 4 means that there are total 4 records which has been updated in your database. And now if you go to data grip and refresh this thing, now you can see that all the ages has been changed to 30. So that's the power of Prisma. Okay. So yeah, once you are done with updating single or multiple records, so the next thing you can do is obviously you can delete a single or multiple record. Okay. So for that, obviously, let's go back to our app. Let's me just, copy this thing. Let's remove it here. Okay. And let's comment this thing for now. Okay, so yeah, for deleting, obviously, since we are having update method as well, as so we can have a delete method. So let me just say let deleted user equals to await, and for awaiting we can say prisma dot user dot delete. And inside this delete, obviously, since we know that we want to delete a record, so we have to provide a condition that on the basis of that condition, Prisma can go and delete that record. Okay. So for that, let's say I want this to be, let's say, where for now where ID is equal to let's say 4. So I want the record to be deleted is ID 4. So if you see that 4 is obviously Jamshed, so obviously it will go and remove this row from your database. So let's save this thing and let's pass delete user in you as a parameter back to client. Okay, so let's save this thing. Let's open our integrated terminal, and now you can see our application is restarting and server has restarted. So let's go to our Thunder client and hit the request, and now you can see it is giving you the user back which is deleted from your database, which was this record ID4 Jamshed Javed. And if you go to a data grip and let's refresh this, now you can see your fourth record is gone from your database. Okay, now that's one way to delete a single record, and obviously there can be scenarios in which you want to delete multiple records. For that you can use delete many. And now obviously delete many, you have to provide a condition in which more than one record should be matching with this criteria. Okay, so for that, obviously, if I go to my data grip, I can see that we are having all the same age. So what I can do is I can mark it where age is 30. Okay, so what it will do is it will go and look for age 30, and for every record where age is 30, it will go and delete all those records. Okay, so if you go to data grip, you can see that these 3 rows will be deleted. Okay, so let's go to our Thunder client and let's hit the request, and now you can see we are having count 3. That means that total 3 records has been deleted from your database. So let's refresh this thing, and now you can see all the records has been deleted. So that's the overall concept of Prisma and how we work with Prisma in our practical applications, especially in context of Express as well. Okay, so yeah, that's the first part of our crash course, in which we have understood how to create our models in our schema, how to migrate our model from our Prisma schema to our migrations. And if you look into my migrations, you can see this was the migration which was created and was executed in our database. Okay, so it was ID, first name, last name, email, and this was the SQL which was being generated behind the scenes, and it was automatically executed by Prisma in your database. So this SQL generated your table, which was this table right over here. Okay, so how we converted our SQL, we executed our migrations, we executed this SQL in our database, and then we performed different operations on this model with the help of Prisma client. And obviously I've not used this user type for now, but again, if you want to use this TypeScript definition, you can use that. Okay, so yeah, that's the overall crash course of our Prisma. For now, I think we are done with our concepts, but yeah, obviously, since we know that there is more to relational databases, and we work with relational databases with the help of our relations, one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. So in the crash course part 2, we will discuss how to work with relations, especially in context of Prisma schema. Okay, so we will come over here, we will create multiple models, and we'll see that how we can link those models with our relations. So okay, so if you're liking my content, do like and subscribe this channel. See you in the next crash course of our Prisma, which will be the part 2. Okay, thanks for watching.